Hello, in this video I want to introduce a way or a system for graphical programming for real beginners, like pupils in school or students in a university who just start coding for their first time and don't know yet if this is really their cup of tea. The basic idea is to let them code something that can produce graphical output instead of a boring hello world on a black console window. The system itself might be useful for teachers who want to create some creative exercises for their students, or for students who easily want to try out some graphical algorithms they learned in their university. All that being said, let's start explaining the system. Before we get into real detail, let's do a quick show off. You have your system in here. The system contains of this main.html file. This is everything you need. Everything that you need is inside this main.html file. This file will load the content of embedded.html, and it will produce, if you open it in your browser, a picture. And when we now check the content of the embedded.html file, then you see this kind of thing. You see a canvas size and just a bunch of coordinates and colors. So pretty simple. And regarding the exercises for your students, they should create this embedded.html file with their program inside their code, and they can view their results not in the console, but rather by clicking the main.html file or updating their browser window. That's the show off. Now let's go into more detail what actually happens. Okay, so we have our main.html file. And like I said, main.html will just load the content of this. And in our case, we created a smiley. What happens if we add a new coordinate on position 0, 0 with the color red? Let's save this and update. And then we get a new pixel in here. We can of course also make it green. Then we get a green one. We can of course also make it to be this very color, which is hardly viewable. Let's remove this to AA. It's a little bit more viewable. What happens in the background is that this is just a color that is interpretable by your browser as a color. So as a CSS color. And let's change the size of the canvas for a second. Let's move it to 20 and reshape. And you saw this small thing here move down. This is exactly 20 pixels on your screen. And it's also 20 pixels wide, but you don't see that because it's just white. So even if you don't write any program, you can play around with this like this with the structure itself, and then think, okay, how do I have to design my program to do that? And if you say, my students are not good with all these complicated things, then you can just remove this color information, change the system a little bit on some parts. That's no big deal. Remove the color information and say, for example, every pixel is red and they should just draw a picture. So what do your students need to know about programming to use this kind of thing? They need to know how to open a file, write to a file, and they don't even need to know HTML. They just need to know everything that they write is going to be in these div things, and that maybe you can tell them the color is always red or whatever. So I tried to make it as simple as possible for the user itself. Let me now just give you some examples what other things you can do with this system, or just examples what you can do with the system. Now we have a different embedded.html, and we can draw through time. Let's take a look at the content. We just added a wait statement. Or we can make it draw a line, or no, moving smiley. Sorry, moving smiley. Now you get a moving line. So now once again, going back to you being a teacher and creating exercises for your students, what exercise could you do? I have one example here called drawing with coordinates and a slightly modified system. This will automatically update itself as soon as the embedded.html is going to be changed. So in our program, we write, for example, 1.11 for these coordinates, and you get a pixel here. Let's write 6.6, and we have a new pixel here. And another one. So your task, your exercise might be that they should create a graphical program like this, where you can write by putting in the numbers of the coordinates. Or a more sophisticated idea, also for myself, I use this for studying the algorithm for anti-aliasing. So we have the anti-aliased line. we want to draw an anti-aliased line from, let's make it pretty easy, from 0, 1 to 10, 6. And depending on how good your algorithm works, you have a nice anti-aliased line or not. And let's check out the content of the program. It looks like this. You have a canvas size in here, and then you have the color shading calculated in HTML. While this is very difficult to write for a first-year student who does not know so much about the coloring, you can of course also change the system to say, for example, this is 1%, and this is maybe 50%, and this is maybe 40%, and this is maybe 60%, and this should be 99 because the above is 1. So kind of like this. You can of course customize the system in a very easy way, so the students have to only put in some very easy numbers that they already know. And that way they can already draw an anti-aliased line if they know the algorithm, even though if they have no idea about how to use OpenGL or how to do canvas programming in HTML5. Everything is based on this embedded.html and this main.html file. I hope you get a rough idea about how the system works and how you can use it. I will put a download link in the video description so you can download it and play around with it yourself. And of course I would be very happy to get any feedback if you use it, or what is not good, what is better, what can we improve. That being said, thank you very much for listening.